Denis Burke is in for Larry Glick.
Larry Glick.
Larry
Glick.
254-5678.
Larry
Oftentimes referred to as the Irishman's Larry Glick, or perhaps the poor man's Larry Glick. Thank you, Stephen. And a Happy New Year, by the way. Happy Jewish New Year to our Jewish listeners. That's why Larry is off to celebrate Rosh Hashanah. And I hope that's close enough. We have some nice things lined up for you tonight. Jane Pauley, for example. Not the Jane Pauley, but a Jane Pauley from Reader's Digest. An editor will be aboard to tell us about a new book called Stories Behind Everyday Things. Strange and fantastic facts about what's all around us. It's a chance to learn something about ourselves through the things we say, the things we do, and the items we use. Meantime, stand by because it's the BZ Studio Orchestra. Featuring Dave Finnegan on the sticks, yeah. Dave Maynard on the tenor saxophone. But you knew that, right? He's got the lip for it. Lest I leave anybody out, it's Carl DeSouza on the keyboard. The vocals of Janet Shigalian. And Bruce Bradley on slide trombone. Do it, kids. As is customary after a piece of music like that, you say, oh yeah. Denis Burke, hello dear heart. It's been a couple of years except for a couple of days, a few weeks back. That doesn't make any sense at all, Dennis. Well, I was here doing things like this for Larry for about 2 years ago. And then a couple of weeks ago came in and did 2 or 3 days for Bob Raleigh. And it was a pleasure to say hello once again to all of you. You know the phone number, 254-5678, area code is 617. Again, the topic, and I think it's a fascinating one, in trivia form, to find out about ourselves, the things, the words, the customs, the people that are kind of offbeat. And it'll be Jane Pauley from Reader's Digest. She's the editor of a book called Stories Behind Everyday Things, Strange and Fantastic Facts about What's All Around Us. I think you'll enjoy it very much. Jane will be aboard at about 10:30. As is our custom in the interim, of course, we take general calls. So if you want to punch up right now, we'll say good morning to someone from Syracuse, I'm told. Huh? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Leo.
Hi. Listen, I caught the show for the first time the other night.
Yes.
And I think it's really fantastic to have a talk show like that. I wish somebody would put a bug in the ear of the people down in Syracuse because I think it's great, except I practically had a stroke trying to call Larry Glick to get a T-shirt for the trivia questions he asked.
Dial and dial and dial, huh?
I can't believe it.
I don't know if this is true or not, but I have heard from a good source, and I'm talking about the telephone company people themselves, and I'm going back about 2 years, that he had registered, Larry had, as many as 17,000 busies per hour.
I believe it.
Ouch, huh?
I had to call the hotel. I'm staying at a hotel and say, I hope you're not charging me for these outgoing calls where I'm getting busy signals because it cost me $300 to get out of the hotel. I couldn't believe it. But let me ask you something, Dennis.
Sure.
Do you think your Red Sox are going to do it? And remember, you're talking to New York.
Do you want it from the heart or from the head?
From the head.
Well, no. No, I don't. The pitching has been much too spotty this year. We looked like we were going to make a run for a while. There's still an outside chance. What do we got? Four games coming up?
Yeah, you sure have.
Like immediately, huh?
Right on.
But the way they're pitching, my gosh, between Bill Campbell and Torres
Mike Torres.
and Eckersley,
You really did us a favor.
you cringe when these guys are on the mound. And that's...
You probably get a million calls about that, but, I didn't really even know until a couple of years ago that all Yankee fans were supposed to dislike Boston.
Oh, yeah. It's a
And
big
I have
rivalry.
been coming to Boston for a long time and have really enjoyed the Red Sox until I found out that they deeply despise the Yankees.
Let me ask you a probing question. Did you
Go
go
ahead.
Did you go to Fenway Park and yell, "Come on, Yanks"?
I can see Fenway Park from where I am right at this moment,
Oh,
and
my.
yes, I have in my life.
If you've done that and survived, then you are a tough cookie.
Sure I am. Sure I am.
It's like going to Montreal and rooting for the Bruins against the Canadians.
Well, you're right.
I mean,
You're right.
you get nasty looks.
Oh, I know you do. I know you do. But I'll tell you what, the hotels are all booked around here, so they don't really mind having you come in for the game.
So you're here for the series, huh?
No, I don't think I'll be able to stay for the whole series, but because I've been here since Monday. But
Who are the opening day pitchers, do you know?
I'll tell you the truth, I really don't. I haven't seen a newspaper since I've been here. And I'm just relying on the radio, and they don't, for some reason, tell me, is that partiality or something? I never hear the Yankee scores.
Is that right?
Honest, I really don't.
I guess it's sort of feeling bad about the whole thing and just sort of burying it. No, in general, you will, the sports shows, for sure. I'll go and check it out during the next
Well,
news
I'm
break.
going to tell you something. During the next few seconds, you'll probably get 9 million calls, and I'm really going to be interested in the next half hour.
Well, good luck anyway,
Well,
New York.
good luck anyway to you, too.
Thank you
Because
much.
I didn't know that we were supposed to have so much animosity. I really didn't.
You're supposed to go yuck.
No, I don't go yuck. I don't go yuck.
All right.
I think everybody has a right to their own opinion.
It's a good team.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Come in and try Edwards Fine Furniture. You'll buy Edwards of Boston Fine Furniture. Come see the lovely styles they have on view. A home full of luxury is waiting for you. And you can buy from Edwards with confidence. Come try Edwards for finer furniture.
There's a floor sample sale now at Edwards' Fabulous Furniture City, and it's all specially priced now for a limited time. Hundreds of rooms on display at savings of up to 50% off. Visit Boston's largest buy-direct furniture showrooms, and you'll save more than ever before. Edwards of Boston, 70 Canal Street between North Station and Faneuil Hall Marketplace.
Come in and shop at Edwards of Boston. Edwards Fine Furniture.
Voice of Larry Glick. Huh? And again, if you're just joining us and saying, oh boy, Larry's not aboard, it's Dennis, and saying yuck, don't be that way. 15 minutes after 10 o'clock, Larry has the night off in honor of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. I was looking at an article, and there's a number printed on here, 5,741. I am not really too familiar with the customs of Jewish New Year. Is this the Jewish year, 5,741? A show of hands, 2545. It is. Thank you, Jerry. It is the Jewish New Year, 5,741. Did you know that? Being an Irish kid?
Yeah, 5741.
5741. They got a head start, huh?
They're way ahead of me, I know that.
That's why they're doing so well.
My people are not subscribing to that calendar, as you know.
I think you're too far off Mike, David, but that's all right. Dave Finnegan expounding on the Irish side of things. 254-5678, area code 617. Dennis Burke for Larry Glick through the night until 2 o'clock at least when one Bob Raleigh comes in and carries on something fierce. We're going to tell you some offbeat and interesting things tonight when Jane Pauley comes aboard at about 10:30, ranging all the way from dentures and firefighting and clothing. Why does clothing have slits and jackets and stuff like that? Parking meters. What's the origin? A man, of course, has a love affair with his automobile, but he doesn't like the parking meter. We'll tell you about that. We'll talk about radio, too, all the way back to the very origin. And I'm proud to say with Westinghouse, which is KDKA. We'll talk about words or expressions, a busman's holiday, the origin of the phrase hello, jargon, snobbishness as far as speech and that is concerned. Are these the scores, Stephen?
No, just
the Yankees score.
Yes.
For a Yankee listener, after 6 innings, it's the Blue Jays 6 and the Yankees 2. Woo! The screaming is going wild around here. And after 7 innings, after 6 innings, the Red Sox are losing as well. Drats by a score of 7-3. 254-5678, area code 617. Be right back.
Can I help you?
Well, yes. I see by your sign that you sell football tickets here.
Oh, that's right.
Well, I love American football, and I'd like 2 tickets for Sunday's game on the 50-yard line.
Yeah, well, listen, I sell football sweeps tickets. That's the new instant game from the New Hampshire Sweepstakes Commission.
Football sweeps? Do they play with brooms or something?
No. Look here. Look at this football sweeps instant game ticket.
Yes?
See, you just scratch the spots and add up your score. You could win up to $1,000.
Really?
Details are on the ticket.
Oh, and it says here that on the average, better than 1 ticket in 4 wins. That's jolly good.
That's right. Plus, there's a $50,000 grand prize.
Well, rather.
Rather what?
I'd rather play football than watch it. I'll take 2 football sweeps tickets. Oh, and do you have crumpets?
Tickets are on sale now. Play football sweeps, the new instant game from the New Hampshire Sweepstakes Commission.
It's jolly good.
Okay, let's punch up and say good morning here on WBZ.
Dennis,
Yes.
will you tell your Yankee fan
Yes.
that in Syracuse they do not publish the Red Sox scores?
Is that right?
That's a fact.
They retaliate, huh?
They do. I visit in Syracuse and I waste time trying to find the Red Sox scores in the papers.
You a big Red Sox fan?
And how?
How about a prediction?
Oh, they're lousy.
There's honesty for you, huh?
Yes.
What's the old expression? Wait till next year?
Well, they say that every year.
We're getting kind of frustrated. What was it, 75 was the last time around?
I just don't know.
We've forgotten already, huh?
Dennis,
67 and
it's good to hear
75.
you again.
Oh, you're an old-time listener, huh?
Yes.
I hope you'll stick around because we have some interesting things throughout the night.
Well, don't worry. I'll be here. And good luck.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Baseball fans are all over the place. Something that has caught my curiosity, and it's a fairly serious subject, but I'd like to hear your opinion on it, but if you'd like to talk about same, is the Lee Harvey Oswald situation. It's done a 360. If you talk about Marina Oswald at the time of Lee Harvey's death said, that's it, it's over with, it's done, let him rest, let him be. She is now saying, let's please dig up the body and have a peek and make sure that this is, in fact, Lee Harvey. And Lee's brother, talking about Robert, at the time of his death, expounded all kinds of doubts about the body in the grave being that of Lee Harvey Oswald. Now he's saying, let him be. And I don't know, since the outset of this whole situation, the Kennedy assassination and then the death of Lee Harvey Oswald, there's been all kinds of offbeat, unanswered questions, and this kind of adds to it again. How do you feel? Do you believe that we will exhume the body and find something out? Do you believe it's better left to rest? I'd like to hear from you on that. Good morning, you're on WBZ. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Mike.
Hi, Mike. Where are you from?
Belmont.
From Belmont. What's happening, guy?
No, I want to say something about the Red Sox there.
Yes, Mike.
Or actually Yankees, for the Yankees fans out there. You said the score there was, 6-2?
Let's see. After 6 innings, Blue Jays 6, Yankees 2.
That's different now. It's 7-6, the Yankees.
Oh, my gosh.
Did you win that?
My gosh, Michael. And the Red Sox are still losing?
Huh?
Are the Sox still losing?
Yeah, they're still losing. I think they lost already. I'm not sure now.
Yeah.
I turned on you. I forgot it.
Down
I
the
forgot
drain,
them.
huh? In fact, there's some scores coming across the little teleprompter I have here, so I'll keep you posted. You think we're going to make it or not, Mike?
Oh, I don't know. I doubt it.
The pitching?
Yeah, the pitching.
The hitting has been very steady, and especially those rookies, huh?
Yeah. They're doing pretty good. Jim Rice has been bombing the home runs there pretty good.
Mike, do you agree? I get the feeling when our youngsters, and I'm talking about people like Bob Stanley, are on the mound, that we're better off than people like Therese.
Oh, yeah. Therese blows up a lot. He gets after... He starts off pretty good, but I don't think he can go the distance.
He's lost it, huh?
Yeah, I think he has.
If that's the case, though, Mike, it says something about our future. If our youngsters are better than the veterans right now, then maybe 2-3 years down the road we're going to be champs.
Yeah, I think so. That's probably why Zim was bringing up, there was a guy out on the bullpen today, a new guy. I haven't heard of him, but, he's bringing up a few new guys. Crawford?
They brought about 9 players in from the minor leagues, Mike. You're right.
Yeah.
So cross your fingers, huh?
Yeah.
You back in school, Mike?
Yeah.
How's it going?
Oh, pretty good.
What year are you in?
8th grade.
8th grade, huh? You got to make the big move. That's junior high, huh?
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
What about the studies?
The studies?
Yeah, your favorite subject and your least favorite.
My favorite's math and my least favorite's English.
Well, that's sort of typical, and I'm not teasing either. If you're into math and you're into science, generally speaking, you're not too much into language, so perhaps you're going to be a mathematician or a scientist of the future, Mike, huh?
Yeah. Maybe.
Thanks for the call, guy.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
WBZ wants you to know that the Mystic Players will present Medford on Parade, a musical celebration of the city's 350th birthday. Now, that's tomorrow through Saturday at 8 p.m. It's at the Chevalier Auditorium. You go and check it out, huh? One more, sure. Punch up. Good morning. You're on WBZ.
Good morning.
Hello?
Good morning. May I offer a suggestion?
I can hardly hear you, ma'am.
May I offer a suggestion?
Sure.
Would you turn on the music from anything and all and get off of sports? It's sick and disgusting. The whole night long. Everything else but the ball games.
Ma'am, I'm not understanding what you're saying. I'm sorry.
I said we are sick and tired of listening to the repeats of ball games, football games, and sports.
What would you like to talk about, ma'am?
Anything at all, the weather, the cost of living, anything at all.
All right, your nickel. What would you like to talk about?
I'd just like to say, you find something else to talk about. You're the one that throws the balls. You always suggest call up anything. And it's sick and disgusting. I'm tired and sick of the program.
Well, thank you for the call, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. A dissatisfied customer, but if you stick around for a few minutes more, of course, we're going to liven things up with Jane Pauley. Right now, I'll make it to be 23 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock. I'm Dennis Burke. Larry Glick has the night off because of Rosh Hashanah, and to all of our Jewish listeners, happy 5,741st anniversary as far as the new year. We have our guest standing by, is that correct? All right, let's say good evening to Jane Pauley. Jane?
Hi, how are you, Dennis?
Very good, and yourself?
Good, thank you.
Introduce you to our listeners at this point. Jane Pauley is an editor with Reader's Digest, and Reader's Digest, of course, needs no introduction, but to clarify matters, you are not the Jane Pauley from TV fame, right?
No, I'm not. I always disappoint everyone, but I'm not.
That's correct. We'll make the best of it, Jane. The book that we're going to get into tonight is called, and it's a rather lengthy title, Stories Behind Everyday Things, subtitle, Strange and Fantastic Facts About What's All Around Us. Now, you and I have rapped a little bit about this off the air, and it kind of struck my fancy that here's a chance to learn something about ourselves in a trivial fashion, in a fun fashion, as to what we say, why we say it, what we wear, what we use as far as clothing and everyday implements, and as far as the customs, why we do things in particular ways. That's what this book is all about, Jane, right?
It absolutely is. That sums it up very nicely by presenting all kinds of secret information, the secret life, if you will, of things that we tend to think of as ordinary. We do find out something about ourselves as well as about the things, habits, customs, and so forth.
So it's not only an entertaining book, but the kind of thing as you leaf through, and it's almost encyclopedic in its lineup, that you say, gee whiz, I didn't know that.
Exactly. In fact, we think of it as our gee whiz book. And it took the efforts of many of us to get this together. We needed, especially the research was difficult to come by. And we knew an item had made it when one of us said,
completely involuntarily. I didn't know that.
That was the criterion, huh?
That was it.
Jane, it seems to be in the flow of people's interest, not only in fiction and in biographies, etc., but in knowing about things, the Book of Lists, for example, sort of get this started, that people could find out what existed and where. This book is 416 pages long, and would you take a guess at how many various articles, words, things, expressions are covered?
Well, I can be specific about the number of entries. We have some 350 main entries and maybe 300 other entries that are spun off the main ones in the form of boxes about things. But Dennis, as far as facts are concerned, there must be tens of thousands of interesting goodies, gee whizzies, in the book.
I'm going to give you a hard time now, Jane, because you were the editor, and with all of these things in there, thousands and thousands, let's test your memory. Just at random, I'll grab a thing. What does it say about dentures, Jane?
Oh, you picked a goodie. We have quite a long article, as articles in this book go, on dentures, and we tell about the fact that for some 2,500 years, people have been looking for a way to replace lost teeth. But there are some very strange things about them. About the 16th century, dentists started to make dentures out of ivory, which was all right because it could be carved and so forth, but they had one awful property. Some writer said in 1850, ivory gives to the air returned from the lungs an insufferably offensive odor which cannot be prevented or corrected.
Uh-oh.
The dentures may be washed half a dozen times a day and taken out and cleaned at night, but it will still be grossly perceptible. Well, on that property of ivory rests one of our very important American freedoms, the freedom of the press. In the 1730s, a New York journalist attacked the colonial governor, whose name was Cosby, and this journalist, whose name was Zenger, said that, among other things, Cosby had a loathsome false teeth and an unclean mouth. Well, the governor jailed the journalist and called it seditious libel, but there was a trial, and Zenger was able to prove that indeed he had loathsome false teeth and an unclean mouth, and the jury found Zenger not guilty, implicitly convicting the governor of bad breath, and truth as a defense against libel was firmly established in our law because of that.
He didn't exactly have kissing sweet breath.
Oh, no.
Jane, is it true now you got into dentures, and I'm probably interrupting you at this point, but the story that circulated is that George Washington wore wooden teeth. Is that correct?
We do get into that, and he certainly had uncomfortable teeth. He had ivory and wooden teeth, but they weren't pounded into his gums, as some people have speculated.
Is there a reason why he strayed from the ivory to wood, or is that sort of common at that time?
I think it was common. They were just looking for things that looked natural and worked, and there wasn't any real good answer at that time. In fact, we say that Queen Elizabeth, who was very embarrassed about not having her front teeth in, you may remember was a very vain lady, stuffed the front of her mouth with cloth for public appearances, but of course then she couldn't talk. Precisely.
That's probably where she got an accent, eh? Little boy.
It could very well be.
A lot of those old English movies that you see, Nigel Bruce and Basil Rathbone would sound that way. Every third or fourth word you'd pick up. Gout.
Yes, exactly.
That's probably it in the class, huh?
Well, somebody once said if you woke up an upper class Englishman in the middle of the night, he'd talk natural.
If he wasn't prepared then, huh?
Yeah.
What about the doctor's tie-in to dentures? Did they look out upon it with approval at the outset?
Well, they did. The doctors and dentures kind of strayed apart early. Doctors and dentists, kind of strayed apart early on. But we have some goodies about doctors, too. Like, for instance, in the Visigoth territory in 5th century Europe, doctors were required to leave a cash deposit with the patient's family. If the patient didn't make it, the family kept the deposit. I think we should try that today.
It sounds like a good deal, huh?
Yeah.
Reverse insurance.
Exactly.
Take a chance dentistry.
Dentistry. We talk about dentistry through the ages. It's like medicine in a way. What we think is terrific here doesn't always go in other countries, and we talk about different practices. In China, for instance, there were street dentists all the time. Like here we have a hot dog vendor.
Mm-hmm.
You just stop by and just sit down on a little box, and the street dentist would get going.
Jane, I want to jump around a bit. Again, if people are just joining us, Larry Glick is the night off because of Rosh Hashanah. I'm Denis Burke, and our guest is Jane Pauley from Reader's Digest. We're talking about a book. It's actually just coming into the stands now, Jane, called Stories Behind Everyday Things, the strange and fantastic facts about what's all around us. All right, what's all around us? Clothing, Jane. Take us in that direction.
Oh, we've got lots of articles about clothing because every little decoration and knick and knack on our clothes usually has some historical origin. For instance, jackets. The rows of buttons on a man's jacket, well, we all know they don't really serve, on the sleeve, don't really serve any purpose, but the story was that Frederick the Great of Prussia ordered rows of buttons sewn on his soldiers' jackets so that they wouldn't wipe their sweaty faces and their runny noses on their sleeves.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, in fact, that probably isn't true. Those little buttons come from the reign of Charles I in England, where very foppish clothes were in vogue, and they liked to turn back very long cuffs to show a fancy contrasting lining, and then they needed to button that cuff up.
So it was more ornate than functional, huh?
Yeah, right from the beginning.
It's the same thing with a sailor's uniform. Jane, being a Navy man myself, there was a transition when I was in the service in the 50s between what they call the 13 buttons, representing the 13 states, which were certainly not functional, especially when you had to make use of the facility in a hurry. 13 buttons took a while, and yet the sailors hung with it because it was very traditional. The reverse Dr. Denton, the flap in the front was up instead of down, and that was strictly a traditional or ornate type of thing, symbolic, if you would.
That's wonderful. I didn't know that. You see, that would have been in the book right away.
Want to hire me, Jane?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't need you.
All right. The jacket, I guess one that gets bounced around a lot is the slit, the side slit, and the back slit. Talk about those.
Well, the back vent, the single vent in the back, comes from the days when horsemen wore very long coats, and they had to be able to jump right on their horse and have the jacket fall off comfortably to either side. And that remains as that little tiny slit in the back now. The side vents, if you are a guy who wears a jacket with the side vents, that came from swordsmanship. You had to be able to reach around and get your sword out easily.
It's a funny thing how they have that staying power, though. I mean, there's not too many of us that wear a suit jacket on a horse or carry a sword nowadays, and yet they're still part of fashion.
It's incredible to me, but it is true, and these things go back centuries. The lapel with the little buttonhole in it is another thing left over.
Which is sewn shut, right?
Yeah, it's sewn shut, that's
If you
right.
want to put a flower in, you have to slit it open.
That's right. Ruining the jacket in the process, usually. But that comes from the days when the very fancy stiff stand-up collar was in vogue, and the jacket was made so that the front could still be closed even with a stand-up collar. And now that little nick in the lapel and the buttonhole are remnants, vestigial remnants of that.
Jay, there's so many things, and I want to give the listeners a little sample of what we're talking about. Again, the things portion. Let's get into an American love affair, and that's been the American and his automobile. And I was teasing the folks before you came on. Yeah, we love the cars, but not the parking meters. Now, they don't go that far back, but I think you've got some things in the book that might be of interest.
Oh, I do, too. Parking meters only go back to 1935, and people have hated them from the day they were introduced in Oklahoma City. And we've got some wonderful stories about things people have done to get even that are true. One of them is about a Minnesota matron who got her chauffeur to drive her around one sub-zero night. And they cruised the streets of her hometown. And somebody saw them, and at every parking meter, the car stopped. The chauffeur got out with a syringe, filled the parking meter with cold water, and then went on. And what they did was freeze up every parking meter in town until she got caught.
Rendered them useless, huh?
For the time being, just out of pure revenge.
I wonder what her fine was, huh?
I don't know, but I know that she got caught.
There's a story, I don't think it's really true, but they say that Columbus picked Plymouth, Massachusetts because he couldn't find a parking space elsewhere. That's why he went in there. Jane, one of the things near and dear to my heart that's covered in the book is radio, and the almost immediate acceptance of commercial radio, and our youngsters, I guess, in the audience would kind of like to hear about this. It happens to be one of our own stations, and talking about Westinghouse's KDKA. You have something in there about radio, right?
Yes, we do. It's one of our longer articles because there's so many fascinating things about radio, and it's quite true and appropriate to this year, too, that ham radios had been quite popular, but Westinghouse really hadn't gotten around to testing commercial radio. They'd been selling receivers. But on November 2nd in 1920, they put up the money for a ham operator named Frank Conrad to go on the air to announce the returns of the Harding-Cox presidential election. And literally, overnight, this up-to-the-minute, thrilling returns from KDKA in Pittsburgh were successful, and from that moment on, commercial radio had made it.
It's gone a long, long way, too, huh? The offshoots such as television and now cable television, and they're talking about the use of lasers as far as communication and whatnot.
Yeah, and you think of the election returns now, we've got some computer predicting what they are with 2% of the vote in.
It's kind of frightening, especially when they're wrong, Jane. I'm going to ask you to sit back, take a little break while we pay the piper, if you would, for just a moment.
Thank you.
I like to sleep till 10 o'clock each morning, but when I do, my boss gets most annoyed. The taste of Maxwell House, it gets me going. Maxwell House, thanks to you, I'm still employed.
Maxwell House is
Good, wake up.
Maxwell House is
Good morning.
good to the last drop. Maxwell House.
Get your mornings going with the great taste of Maxwell House coffee. Coffee you can count on.
Good to the last drop. Maxwell House. WBZ Radio 1030.
Hello there, Dennis Burke sitting in for Larry Glick. He has the night off because of a Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. We are at 22 minutes before 11 o'clock. I'm Dennis Burke. The phone number for use after our guest is all set will be 254-5678, area code 617. Bad news for Sox fans, a final score. Cleveland Indians 7, the Red Sox 4. And again, as Mike told us a little while ago, it was the Yankees had come back to take the lead and probably won by now over the Blue Jays. And we start a series with the Yankees here in Boston shortly, so we shall see what happens. Meantime, we're talking with Jane Pauley. Jane is an editor from the Reader's Digest book division, and our topic is a thing called Stories Behind Everyday Things. Strange and fantastic facts about what's all around us. Jane, are you there?
I am.
Let's move into words or expressions that have found their way into the fiber of our everyday language, and yet we don't really pay much attention. Some of the things that just bounce, going like 60, used to be an expression for really going fast, and yet you can't say that anymore because you have to revise it to say going like 55. A woman used to automatically say, are my nylon seams straight? They don't have seams anymore, Jane. How about some of the things you have? Busman's holiday, what does that mean?
Oh, that's a goodie. In fact, some word historian was trying to figure that out, and all of a sudden he heard from a lot of busmen in England, and if you don't mind, I'll read you what one of them said.
Sure.
50 years ago, I was a conductor in one of London's horse buses. The driver and his horses were as one. There was a deep attachment between them. When my driver had a day off, knowing that his horses would miss him, he always came down to the terminus to see them off on the journey. If he suspected the temporary driver of not treating them well, he would travel throughout the journey as a passenger. He was only one of many such drivers, and when we saw a driver riding on his bus during his day off, we always said of him that he was taking a busman's holiday.
It's so simple that it makes sense. Huh?
I know, it's
You
too
couldn't
easy,
leave
isn't
that
it?
animal alone. How about some of the others? I think one that we say over and over and over and never think about is hello.
Hello. In fact, you're right, Dennis. It's probably the most common greeting in the whole English-speaking world. And indeed, there's always been some kind of form of it in the language. People have been hallooing across mountains and valleys and helloing and so forth. But until the telephone came along, we didn't really hello, H-E-L-L-O. And in fact, New Haven tried to make sure we didn't continue to do it. They wanted to say ahoy, ahoy when they answered the phone, being the old salts that they are.
Nautical phrase, huh?
Indeed.
So that would date it about what?
Oh, this is in the 1920s.
About 1920, so it's fairly recent. Yet,
it was maybe a little earlier, maybe closer to the turn of the century.
as you say, some form of it has existed. Was there a resistance to it? Was it considered sort of trite or not in proper usage or what?
Well, folks like you and me loved it from the beginning. It became immediately popular. The telephone operators were called Hello Girls, and there was a very sad, popular ballad called Hello Central, Give Me Heaven, about a little girl trying to get her mother who had died.
I remember that.
But Emily Post did not think much of it. In fact, she thought it was extremely vulgar, although she thought a pleasant tone of voice might possibly ameliorate the effect. Under no circumstances, she said, however, was that word to be used in church or even on the church grounds after services, because she apparently thought it was too familiar.
My gosh, sort of the blue laws of language, if you would, huh?
Exactly.
Jane Pauley, jargon. Now, jargon is something that I know that the service, for example, a lot of phrases, negative, affirmative, became negates and affirmates, and it found its way back into some of the language. Unfortunately, a lot of the cuss words came from the service where various parts of the nation were exposed one to the other, and they brought them back and spread them throughout the nation. But in general, it seems to come from professions. Radio has its own language. A computer operator has his own language. Is that the basis, that jargon comes from profession and then finds its way into everyday life?
Yeah, it is. And indeed, it has its uses. I mean, in the publishing world, we certainly have our jargon, too. But I think it's partly perpetuated, and we discussed this in an article on the subject of jargon, because people like to sound like insiders. I mean, everybody likes to have a little special knowledge that shuts everybody else out, except the other people in their group.
Sort of a snobbishness.
Yeah, it is. Are you interested in hearing Vassar College president's idea of what the Lord's Prayer might sound like in jargon?
I can imagine, but go ahead, Jane.
Well, it starts, the Lord is my external, internal, integrative mechanism. I shall not be deprived of gratifications from my viscerogenic hungers or my need dispositions, etc. I mean, jargon can be really just stop anything dead.
One that you and I had rapped about before going on, Mike, was jazz is one of my great loves. And the jazz people are always somewhat out there, spacey, and have a language of their own, and a graphic one. I think it's even by the boards now, but if something was truly good, excellent, they would say, boy, is he bad.
Yeah,
that's exactly, I think, what we're talking about, the jargon of a profession. Huh?
Well, it is, and think of funky came out of the from the jazz musicians in the 1940s. And now it means something kind of different.
Yeah.
But before that, Louis Armstrong once called a place a funky butthole.
I don't think I'll ask you to explain that, Jane.
No, but if you read the book, you'll find out.
One of the little articles, the boxes, if you would, that caught my fancy in the book is called Poetic Pasta. What the heck is that, Jane?
Well, it's just a little article in which we really don't do anything more than translate a lot of the pasta names. For instance, linguine means little tongues, cannelloni means large reeds, and vermicelli means little worms.
No wonder I don't care for that.
No, I don't think you probably want to know the rest of those either.
One of the things I bounced off of Jane, folks, before going on the air when we talked about some of these headings, and Jane didn't know, maybe you don't, is that in general pasta, and you'll find vermicelli number 247, I'm just pulling these numbers out of the sky, or macaroni number 684. I asked once, what the heck are those numbers? And I was told that they are the wire gauge wire gauge measurements, whether it's centimeters or millimeters, I don't know, but that's what it is measured, and that's how it got its numbers.
That's fascinating. I do need you, Dennis.
I'll be there. Let me interject something here, Jane, because we've got some baseball fans hanging in. The Yankees beat the Blue Jays.
Yay!
Oh, shh. And the Red Sox lost, so we'll just leave it at that. Puns. Puns, something that is a tremendous part of a DJ's existence in radio, Jane, offends some people. And I know you've got one heck of a story in there about a particular king or monarch that wasn't too pleased with his punster.
Well, you're exactly right. This is the end of a kind of a nice length article on puns if you like them. But for those who didn't, we ended with this story. A king decided he couldn't stand his jester's puns any longer and condemned him to death. But just on Gallows Day, he decided that really was too cruel, and he sent a messenger off to say that if he never punned again, he could escape hanging. So the messenger arrived at the gallows as the jester stood there with a rope already around his neck and read the decree. He could be pardoned if he promised never to make another pun. The jester couldn't resist the temptation, though. He cackled out, "No noose is good news," and they hanged him.
Hence the expression, "This one's going to kill you, folks." Jane, let's take a break and then talk about customs and people. Be right back.
Bye.
Excuse me, I own that shoe store across the street.
Uh-huh.
Want to buy it?
Well,
I'll be honest. I have great shoes, but no customers, so I'm ready to sell the whole thing at any price you name it.
$12.
Sold.
Ooh.
Well, now that you own a shoe store, what'll you do with it?
Well, advertise.
Well, I tried. A lot of newspaper ads, then TV and magazine.
I'll probably go radio.
Radio?
Yeah, according to the latest studies, everyday radio reaches more people than newspaper, TV, or magazines.
How did you
What's
know?
more, radio targets customers. I'll match up the right stations for my dressier lines and different stations for young casual. Since radio costs a lot less than newspapers or TV, I'll get good efficiency.
Listen, I'd like to buy my store back from you.
Well,
at a fair profit.
Okay.
How much do you...
$156,000.
That's a pretty fair profit.
Take it or leave it.
I'll take it.
What you don't know about radio could cost you a lot. What you can learn is free for the asking. Call this station or the Radio Advertising Bureau. They brought you this message. Radio. It's red hot.
The Singer Sale-a-thon is on. Pass it along. The Singer Sale-along is on-a-thon?
At Singer now, save $150 off regular price on one of the world's easiest-to-use sewing machines, the Touchtronic 2001 memory machine with 27 built-in stitches. Or save $120 off regular price on the Touchtronic 2000 machine with 25 stitches.
Don't pass it by.
The Singer store where saving is always in style.
Price is optional at participating dealers.
It's the place. It's 12 minutes before 11 o'clock again, and I'll say it throughout the night so you won't be confused. Denis Burke subbing for Larry Glick, who is out celebrating Rosh Hashanah. Our guest is Jane Pauley. And Jane, I have to keep flipping this in front of me because it's such a lengthy title. It must cover the whole front page of your book. It's called Stories Behind Everyday Things, Strange and Fantastic Facts About What's All Around Us. We talked about things and words, expressions. What about customs? How do things come into vogue, Jane Pauley?
Well, just about everything we do is customary and involves customs, so that we never were really able to separate customs from a lot of the things we talked about completely, although we do have a lot of boxes in the book, more than 50, on specific customs. And we were pretty broad-minded in our definition of a custom, but we treat life's milestones, birthday celebrations, marriage, divorce too, funerals, burial rites. We deal with kissing and handshaking, the symbolism of hats and gloves and handkerchiefs.
What can you tell us about kissing, Jane?
Well, I can tell you that most of the world to this day considers it a degenerate Western custom.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's just not practiced other than in the Western world.
They don't know what they're missing.
I know that, but we didn't know it either until Hollywood really popularized kissing for us, particularly among unmarried people.
It was considered sensual, and I can recall the church on occasion, saying suggestive sequences when the kiss was held more than X number of seconds.
That's right.
In the love scenes in the early movies, the male actor, or at least one of the actors, had to keep a foot on the floor while they were doing a bed scene.
Oh, is that right?
Some strange things, yeah. One of the common things having to do with etiquette, if you would, and perhaps we can spin into etiquette, is the business about the gentleman, and that's a properly used term in this case, walking on the street side of the lady. Do you have something along those lines that explains the why? What was he doing out there? Was it the Sir Walter Raleigh business about spreading his cape, keeping the lady shielded from being splashed, or what is that about?
Well, I think that certainly is one answer, and that's one of those customs that I don't think any social historian has a final answer on. But at least one theory is that in the crowded streets of London, there was always danger of somebody emptying slops or something worse on the head. And many of those houses were kind of cantilevered out over the street so that if the lady was safely on the inside, she was...
You'll excuse me.
Yes.
That was a brave gentleman, I would say.
I think so, too.
What does it say in the book about the custom of marriage or divorce?
Well, with marriage, we talk about different marriage customs all over the world, and as you can well imagine, we dress in white, but dressing in black is appropriate in some other places, and there are a lot of very strange, they seem strange to us, marriage customs, and we go over them. In Scotland, there's something called chairing the bride.
Chairing?
Chairing the bridegroom, where the Scottish soldiers place the groom on a chair and carry him through the streets with great hoorah. What happens to the bride, nobody knows, but she doesn't seem to have anything to do with this whole arrangement.
You ready for a pun?
Yes, I'm ready.
Sounds like a cheap high. Forget it, Jane. I
can see you're in the right business.
We have one more piece of commercial business to do, then we're going to talk about some of the fascinating offbeat people in the book and then wrap things up. So if you'll stand by for just a moment, I'm going to turn my page as I reach past my microphone here and find the proper spot that says, now in August, New England's fabulous Adams men's clothing warehouses are jumping the gun on fall with crazy prices on corduroy. Now, while current stocks last, here's your chance to pick up good, serviceable corduroys that you'll want for back to college and fall, and a fraction of the normal retail prices. Now, corduroy vested suits, French designer styled, $135 values, now a crazy $59.90 at Adams. Designer labeled suits selling elsewhere for twice our prices, $89.90 to $139.90 at Adams. Corduroy slacks you'll see everywhere this fall at $20 to $25, now $11.90 at Adams. Adams beats the season, so you can beat the system. Come on and get them right now. Current stocks while they last. Incredible savings on corduroys at Incredible Adams, Boston Beach and South Streets, Worcester 51 Union at Market, Salem, New Hampshire, Route 28, opposite the Rockingham Mall. Open daily 10 till 8:30, Saturdays till 6. Salem stores open Sundays from 1 until 6 p.m. Jane Pauley. Some of the people listed in the book, and again, it's 416 pages long, and it's an encyclopedia of why we're at, why we do, why we say all kinds of things, are fascinating. There's a jet purported to be the very first detective. His name was what?
His name was Francois Vidocq, and he was a Frenchman, and in fact, all the systems that he instituted in the Sûreté in France really became that organization became the prototype for the Scotland Yard and even our FBI. But the man was, before he became these wonderful things, not only a soldier, but a jailbird, a fugitive, a spy, a womanizer. He was a forger and an escaped convict.
Sounds like a fun guy.
Anyway, he was. He was a fascinating fellow. But once he worked his way into the police work, he became the first person to really understand the importance of fingerprints for positively identifying a criminal. And he introduced handwriting analysis. He introduced administration to the science of detection and following up on the law.
So he did some straight things, too.
He did indeed, but he was also a master of disguise.
That's the gent that the book says used to masquerade as a woman?
Well, yeah, he masqueraded as a woman the first time he got into this business. He was only 15 years old, but you see, he wanted to go with an older woman he was in love with on a trip, and he had to fool this woman's husband into thinking that she just had a young companion, and he got away with it.
It must have been a heck of a thing. Jane, we're running short on time. One gent that ring a bell with everyone out there and point out the fact that not only they're offbeat people perhaps you haven't heard of, but those you have as well. How about the Thomas Edison that no one really knows?
Well, he's a wonderful crackpot, really. I mean, he was indeed the genius we all know him to be, but personally, he was nutsy. He slept in his clothes because he thought taking them off would bring on insomnia. He practically starved to death sometimes because he thought food was bad for your intestines. Somebody asked him once whether he exercised, and he said, I just use my body to carry my brain around in. Why would I do that? And I guess he was right.
Straight from the shoulder. Again, and we're down to our last 2.5 minutes or so. The list of people, of things, of words, and places are certainly worth perusing. The great French chef, Carême, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes. Carême was a person who is kind of responsible for the sort of menu that we're used to. When he was a chef to Talleyrand and other greats of his day, those were the days when they were eating 100 dishes at a meal. And he introduced a little sense in terms of texture and tastes and refinement. And a lot of his recipes and ideas we still use today, but he started out, he was one of 25 children, and perhaps understandably his father left him at the gates of Paris at the age of 11.
Probably developed the boarding house reach as well.
I guess he must have. I'd like to point out, Dennis, before I leave you, that this book is also very heavily illustrated. We have over 750 illustrations in it.
All the way from a gentleman sitting on the back of a yak in a rocking chair.
Yes, we tried to make them all
suitable for prints.
Exactly.
Jane, let's review it one time. It deals with the things, the words, the customs, the expressions, the people that kind of have set us in the direction that we now exist as far as who we are. And it's a worthwhile look back as far as the offbeat things, why we do things without even being questioned. It's called The Stories Behind Everyday Things, subtitled Strange and Fantastic Facts About What's All Around Us. And it's published by Reader's Digest. And I believe in checking today with, I guess it'd be a plug, but if I gave the name, but it is available at some of the bookstores right now. It was printed in May and is just coming out. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it went out to our direct mail buyers in June, but it's just getting into the bookstores now for you people interested in a bookstore purchase.
Do you know what the price is, Jane?
I think it's about $19.
Yeah, and I think locally, at least, when I talked today, you can get it at a discount if you buy it fairly quick, something like $14.95.
Oh, that's a bargain.
Jane Pauley, a delight, and I hope to have you back, and you people from Reader's Digest have been fun all through the years, and we hope to be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
About 60 seconds to go before news at 11 o'clock from Steve Smith. And again, if you're a Red Sox fan, it's time to kind of bemoan the fate tonight because the Red Sox lost to the Cleveland Indians by a score of 7-4, while the Yankees were beating the Blue Jays 7-6. So it's almost an impossible task, but we take them on here shortly. I guess it starts tomorrow, as the Sox have a 3 or 4 game series with the Yankees, and if they intend to do anything at all, it has to be now or not at all. 254-5678, area code is 617. Your calls, you're the star. After news, which will be next. I'm Denis Burke. Larry Glick has the night off for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, which is a year number 5,741. You guys certainly had a head start. Larry, captain, commander, and all is due back tomorrow night, so take heart. Meantime, we'll get ourselves all set for news. 61 degrees currently in Boston. I'll press this little button here. The Spirit of New England, WBZ Boston Group W, Westinghouse Broadcast.
And that's the 11 o'clock WBZ report with portions recorded. I'm Stephen Smith, WBZ News. We invite you to stay tuned now because there's more on the Larry Glick Show with Denis Burke sitting in. Dennis?
Thank you, Stephen. Again, if you're just joining us, where the heck have you been? Larry Glick has the night off because of Rosh Hashanah. And again, we say Happy New Year to all of our Jewish listeners. I'll be aboard until 2 when Bob Riley comes in and carries on something fierce, talking about puns as we were. And our thanks again to Jane Pauley of Reader's Digest for her dissertation on the new book called Stories Behind Everyday Things. Try this one. Women like the strong, silent type because they think that he's listening. That could or could not be the case. Let's punch up and say good morning here on WBZ. Hello?
Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning.
I'm calling from East 9th and Dorchester Street.
Charlie DiGiovanni.
How you doing?
Very good. And yourself, sir?
All right. You sound great, Dennis.
Thank you, sir.
I got a message from Larry to you.
Yes?
He says, do your usual good show, but don't be too good.
I'm trying not to be too good, and I think I'm succeeding.
Though, Dennis. You're okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlie.
Yeah? Anything I can do for you, Dennis?
Oh, you could tell me what the traffic is like out there tonight?
Well, right now it's kind of heavy, Dennis.
A direct traffic report.
I just came out, and I had, especially down around Neyland and Stewart in the combat zone, you know.
You're the nighttime Joe Green, Charlie.
Yeah. That'll be all right.
You can keep us posted throughout the evening, huh?
Well, if anything comes up, I'll call you, Dennis.
Appreciate it, guy.
I like to play a little tune for you.
Oh, what do you got?
Salty is my hometown, down in for the boys down in 9th and Dorchester.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie DiGiovanni.
Okay, Dennis.
Hit it. Fantastic,
okay,
Charlie.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. In case you're puzzled, by the way, Charlie plays that for me all the time because I'm from Southie. I lived there for 17 years, and he's making reference to East 9th and Dorchester. Now, for those of you listening in old Hazleton, Pennsylvania, you're saying, East 9th and Dorchester doesn't mean a thing to me. We'll be right back.
Now, Wonderland has a brand new, sophisticated super-speed betting system that's easy as ABC. All betting and cashing, so you can walk up to any window, make any type of bets and any amounts, and cash any winners all at one window, all at the same time.
Come play the favorite Wonderland Park. Come play the favorite, give your life a spark.
You'll feel alive again, won't want that hot end.
Come play the favorite Wonderland.
For you bettors who used to race from the cashier's windows to 2 or 3 different betting windows, it means the end of the lines. So you can spend more time handicapping, watching replays, eating, drinking, arguing with your friends, and generally doing what you're supposed to be doing at Wonderland, having a good time.
You feel alive again, won't want that hot end.
ABC, Wonderland's new all betting and cashing windows. After all, it's the dogs that are supposed to be racing around, not you.
Wonderland.
And I curtsy and say, come play the favorites Monday through Saturday at 8. Can I do this? It means nothing, really, and doesn't really add to the show, but it's kind of an ego builder. I used to be the racetrack announcer upcountry, the New Hampshire version of Wonderland. Here comes Yankee. I told you it didn't mean much. But it sure feels good. Back to the phones, 254-5678, area code 617. There is a line open right now if you've been trying to get through. Good morning, Air on WBZ.
Good evening.
Why am I saying good morning? I guess this shift is normally morning, that's why.
Oh, that's
good evening.
When you're on.
Yes, sir.
Dennis, I enjoy your program so far.
Thank you very much.
I hope it's better. Well, better than what Larry wants.
Oh.
I just wanted to ask you a few things on, are you familiar with this Proposition 2.5?
Just a little bit. I've been living in New Hampshire for the last couple of years, and all I've heard are bits and pieces on Dave Finnegan's show, but I'll try.
Okay. I just wanted to know, this Proposition 2.5 is for local government.
Right.
Cities and towns.
Yeah, it wouldn't curb state spending, but would curb the municipalities.
Yeah, first of all, I feel that local cities and towns have a hard enough problem. I'm not for it, and I'm not against it, because I feel there must be something else that's got to solve the problem with the property tax, because it's very unfair the way it is. Because most of the property tax in this state is, it comes out to 69-70% of the tax bill in the state.
Let's give our listeners an idea. What town are you from?
I'm from Milford, Mass.
All right. And your tax rate is what down there?
$84 on 1,000, I believe, right now.
And is that 100%?
Okay, we just went 100% about a year ago, and we went into the classification, which saved me money. And it actually, I was paying really cheap, about $10.50 a year. And with the classification and 100%, I went down to $782 or something like that.
$782.
And but they made a mistake on it. But I believe my tax bill is going to go up $100. But that's not the problem. The problem is the rest of the state. Many people across the rest of the state have the same type of house I have, and they pay $3,000, which is very unfair to these people. I feel the property tax must be put on the shoulders of the rest of the taxpayers, because 70% of the average tax bill across the state is for the schools.
Right.
The schools, in general, are supported by the federal government, roughly 7 or 8%. I might be wrong on these figures. Maybe 17% by the state, and the rest is supported by the property tax payers. My town is mostly, it has about 23,000, 24,000 people. And that is broken down into about 5,000 property, 5,200 property parcel owners. Although many of them, it could be broken down even further, because many of them own 2, 3, 10, 15. Okay, this burden is put onto these property owners in the form that they are paying for everybody that goes to school. I feel that the school tax should be taken out and paid by the state myself, and it should be put on the state income tax.
Ouch.
Yeah, well, if broken down into, there's roughly about almost 3 million people working in this state. There's about 1,800,000 parcels of property taxed in the state.
You'd get a lot of flack, if I can interrupt you for a second, though, because a lot of people who are childless then would be paying for it. I know it's an equal distribution, if you would, spread it out, but it's kind of unfair to them.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get that down to. Childless people usually buy a home. They can afford to buy it. And what they do is they subsidize other people that, you know, have the kids. I don't care what town you take. You take Boston. All these kids that fled forced busing, that went to the private school.
And a lot of them did.
Okay?
Yep.
That to me, it should have been some type of reduction in Boston in the school system. At least the money appropriated, because they have less kids. Because the people that send them to the private schools are now taking the money out of their own pocket. And what happened to the money that was appropriated in the city of Boston? What happened to that?
Yeah, you think it would cost less for fewer students. I know what you're saying.
But the property tax is very unfair, and it's got to be everybody's gone to school. Therefore, I feel that everybody working must pay for it. It's not very much. It can be put on the state income tax by one extra line, and it's not going to be that much.
What you're saying is, if it was spread out over the entire population,
it's going to be fair.
Working population of Massachusetts, it would at least be less. That, in essence, though, it's not a panacea. That the issue 2.5. What is it be called? 2.5. What's the phrase for it?
I don't really know.
Question 2.5 or
Proposition 2.5.
Proposition 2.5. Yeah, they're trying to put a cap on the spending of a town.
And that's unfair, too.
Well, it is, but then again, it's going to be a way that you're not going to keep soaring and soaring and soaring. They can only spend so much.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe a combination, huh?
You take a house in Massachusetts when you buy it now. What's a new house cost you? $60,000?
At least.
Okay, 2.5% of that is what?
Well, 10% is 6,000, so 1% is 600. 2.5 would be 12, 1,400, something in there. Right?
1,500.
Yep.
Okay. You take 70% away from that, which is $1,050. You get the property tax down to $450. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if you spread it out to all taxpayers in the Commonwealth, then you now have, you enable to elderly people, they can afford to pay their taxes. A person laid off from work, he will not have to pay a certain percentage they would normally have to pay, but he could pay for his property tax. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I do. A distribution over a wider number, it makes some sense, but when you talk about giving a person who presently doesn't have a tax, you're going to get into a lot of flack.
Yeah, well, but I know many people right now today that are buying their house, they're paying $500 in mortgage money, or better. Okay, they cannot afford to buy a new car, but a person in an apartment, they can. I know. I have a two-family house.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I pay, I have a 10-room house. Whether I rent it or not, I still have to pay the tax. But when I figure it out, if I had a single-family home, I'd be paying more tax. It's very unfair to a single-family house. I'm just talking about being fair. You got to be fair.
Let's put it this way. It makes some sense. I'll grant you that. It certainly will be unpopular, but let's toss it out to the listeners. We've got about 3 hours to go and get some feedback.
That's why I called, and I hope you get some feedback, and I hope your program is a success.
Thank you very much,
because,
sir.
Larry, I feel...
be nice now.
I know. I'm going to be nice.
Sir.
I'm going to be nice.
Thanks for the call.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Nobody's bigger. Nobody's bigger today. Nobody's bigger in small cars than your good friend Chevrolet.
Nobody sells more small cars than your Chevy dealers, like Chevy Chevette, more popular than any other subcompact sold in America, including imports. See the hot-selling Chevette at your Chevy dealers now.
Nobody's bigger in small cars than your good friend Chevrolet.
Congressman Robert Drinan.
Ordinarily, I don't endorse candidates, but Barney Frank is independent in a unique sense. He listens to all sides, he understands the issues, and then he follows through on his commitments and with great courage acts as his conscience tells him. He's very well informed, he's highly idealistic, he's extraordinarily hardworking, and for all of those reasons, I have endorsed Barney Frank.
Robert Drinan for Barney Frank, Democrat.
Paid for by the Barney Frank for Congress Committee.
WBZ Radio 1030.
Where the time is 18 minutes after the hour of 11 o'clock. Temperature reading in Boston right now is 61 degrees, and the voice you hear is that of Denis Burke. Larry Glick has the night off because of Rosh Hashanah. And again, Happy New Year to our Jewish listeners. 254-5678, area code 617. All of the lines are currently busy, so we'll let you know when there's an opening for you. Meantime, back to the phone by saying good morning here on WBZ. I should say good evening, right? I'll get that straight. Good evening here on WBZ. Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Dennis?
Yes.
Dennis, this is one of your morning listeners.
Son of a gun.
Last time I spoke to you was the morning you announced you were leaving.
Back to my Lawrence, Massachusetts days, huh?
One of those days. And I'm sorry to say, it has never been the same.
It's because I wrecked the studio.
No.
We should point out to our listeners that I spent about 8 years working for Kurt Gowdy at WCCM in Lawrence, and that's what this caller is talking about. So you're a Lawrencean, huh?
Yes, I am. And I miss you very much. And I just picked up the news and heard your name, and I said I just have to say hello to Dennis.
Well, I appreciate that.
Last time I said hello to you, I didn't say hello, I said goodbye.
You were saying goodbye, now you're saying hello again. Radio's like that, you know.
Oh, dear, I wish you were back on CCM.
Well, I appreciate the kind wishes.
Yeah.
And you're taking...
still in New Hampshire?
Yes.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, I'm up in Manchester.
Very nice to talk to Dennis, and so glad to hear you again.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's kind of nice when someone will take the time to fight their way through the crowd just to say it's nice to hear you again. That makes you feel good. 20 after 11 o'clock. Good morning. No, I'll do it right. Good evening here on WBZ.
Good evening.
I've been doing this shift, as you might remember, off and on for about 2 years, and it was normally from midnight to 5, so I used to have to say good morning, but I'll get it right. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Very good.
Yes, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did you see, what do you think of the play called Sugar Baby in Boston?
What do I think of it?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I've seen the ads on TV. Robert Morse and Carol Channing, right? It looks like a fun thing, a spoof on the entertainment of yesteryear.
Yeah.
Now, you sound like a young person. What do you think of it?
Oh, I didn't see it yet. I never saw it.
You intend to see it?
No.
It sounds like a lot of razzmatazz and dancing and singing.
There's a station called...
Oh, you mentioned a competition. You should do that. Yeah, we've been giving away tickets for everything.
What'd you say?
I say we've been giving away tickets for all kinds of things, too.
Yes. I know, because... Can I ask you one more question?
One more question.
Why would it... Money?
Money.
Money?
Money is the answer. I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. And that gentleman is a friend of mine.
He is?
Yeah.
His wife said...
You keep mentioning call leaders, we're going to keep beeping you off the air, but he likes it better at the other station because it gives him a chance to do a different shift.
Yes.
He had been working all night, now he gets a chance to work in the mornings.
Okay, could you put on that tape before the news?
A tape before the news?
Yeah, it goes dun-dun-dun-dun.
The what?
That tape goes dun-dun-dun-dun with like a little jingle.
Well, if I do that, the newsman, Steve Smith's going to go wild because he's going to think it's his cue and he'll come running out. But if you stick around for about 35 minutes, you'll hear it again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Keep mentioning other call leaders and we'll beep you right off the air. Other stations do exist, but just barely. 22 after 11 o'clock. Keep doing time checks to remind myself that it's evening and not morning. Good morning, you're on... Oh, I did it. Good evening, you're on WBZ.
Good morning.
Now I get you doing it.
You've got me doing it now.
Let's start again. Good evening, you're on WBZ.
Yes, yes. Good evening. There.
Hi.
Hi. What do you do the rest of the time, Dennis? You have such a lovely voice.
Well, thank you very much. Up until the beginning of July, I was a program director and radio announcer at a station in Manchester, New Hampshire, and now I'm a radio announcer in search of a job. So how's that for honesty? I'm unemployed.
You're very honest. I'm sorry.
Right from the shoulder. Yeah, normally, I've been in radio for 10 years.
Gosh, my speaking voice. Did you have to cultivate that, or does it just come naturally?
It's strange you should ask that, because as a child, I was quite shy to give a recitation. And if you're a child of the 30s, then you know that you used to stand up in class and have to recite from memory. And I used to go all to pieces, and I would stutter, and I would get all kinds of cold sweats and whatnot. So it's something that I guess the stubborn Irish streak inside said, hey, Burke, get hold of yourself and slow down and think about what you're saying and enunciate. So I think it was seizing a weakness and turning it into, I hope, a strength.
My timbre of it is fine. I called to ask you something which I'm puzzled by.
Uh-huh.
Perhaps you can recall what this group is. A friend of mine was very active in it for a while.
Can I get you to speak up a little bit?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm partially lying down. That's probably the problem.
That's
I'll
it.
sit up, okay?
You're talking uphill.
You're right. I'm talking straight now, I think.
All right.
Do you remember the Edgar Casey study groups? And some of them are still in existence. And do you remember who Edgar Casey was?
The name rings a bell. Beyond that, I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, I'm dying to find out. I know I should know.
Let's toss that out to the audience a few times tonight, huh? Edgar
Casey, C-A-Y-C-E.
C-A-Y-C-E, so not the Irish version, huh? Was it a political group or what?
No, now this group is a very, it seems to be a very uplifting, strengthening moral fiber-wise, spiritually, that type of group. There were regular, I guess, weekly meetings where they met, and with great benefit to the people who belong. And I know there are still some Edgar Casey groups, but I can't for the life of me remember.
Are you calling from the Boston area?
No, I'm not. No, I'm calling from Rhode Island, but I certainly am not that far away.
And they were active down that way recently?
Well, I've been reading it at times. I read in the paper where, under this What's Happening Tonight column, you'll see Edgar Casey study group. But a friend of mine from Connecticut wrote to me and said she had been a member for 10 years. Now, I would like to write intelligently back.
I was just handed a note that said that Edgar Casey is a famous psychic. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, that does ring a bell, but why would there be a study group?
Well, it probably goes beyond strictly the psychic phenomenon and gets into the holistic person, if you would, in studying the things that make you go inside, make you feel good, etc. I would surmise.
Spiritual growth. She's a lovely person, my friend, and seems to have thrived on that group. And I was really curious. Now, I'm very pleased to learn that much anyway.
Really done something for her, huh? I will do that for you. A couple of times during the night I'll mention, does anyone know about the Edgar Casey study group, and does it still exist, and how do we get in touch?
Yes, I appreciate that very much, Dennis, and the best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye. 26 after 11 o'clock, that makes it evening, and I'll practice that. 60 degrees right now in Boston. Just handed a whole sheet of scores for you baseball fans out there. The Yankees beat Toronto 7-6. It was Baltimore 8-4 after 6.5 innings. This is Biff Burke in sports. What is this, Pat Underwood? Don't read everything it says there, Dennis. The final, Cleveland 7, Boston 4. Milwaukee 3-1 after 8.5 over Minnesota. It was Kansas City at California. The starters are Rene Martin for Kansas City and Frank Botting for California. You want some more? We'd give you more. A final, Oakland 3-1 over Texas. The Chicago White Sox beat Seattle 4-3. National League, Montreal 4. The Cubs 2. Philadelphia 4-0 over the Mets. It was Pittsburgh's 6-2 after 5.5 over St. Louis. Los Angeles 3-3 after 7 with Houston. And a final, Cincinnati 3-0 over Atlanta. One more? All right. San Francisco zip and San Diego zip after 2 innings. And that's sports, and I'm Biff Burke. You ever thought about why sports announcers always sound angry? That's sports, and I'm Biff Burke. Enough of that. 27 minutes after 11 o'clock. Good morning here on WBZ, and I said it again.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, good evening, Deb.
I'll just say hello or good evening.
Am I on?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just talking, but we're going to talk about that guy from Millis. I think that guy from Millis is right. And about 8 or 9 years ago, when the Mr. Kelly was in charge of the Ways and Means Committee up in the State House, I filed a bill. Now, the bill that I filed was very similar to what this man was talking about. What it would do, the one I put in, was put a freeze on the property tax. In other words, you don't outlaw it altogether.
No,
you freeze it at its present rate.
It'd be disastrous if you yanked it out completely.
And then by freezing it, through attrition and through inflation, you would have a tendency to stabilize it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then then you have what they call a piggyback to your federal income tax. In other words, it's at a smaller level, naturally, but the federal income tax, through all its pitfalls, and different things, is the fairest form of tax. In other words, this is a great country, okay?
Let me stop you for a second. Why federal instead of state? Because that
No. It's going to be a state income tax, but it's a piggyback. In other words, the same version as the federal government. In other words, you have...
Same system.
Same system.
I got you.
Now, the idea is this is a great country, okay? And if you're allowed to make big money in this country, you shouldn't be a bunch of crybabies. You should ante up. You're making you're making big money. Hey, the big people with the big money are the people that should pay. Okay, and this is the way it should be. Now, of course, the trouble is a lot of people, will hire bookkeepers and lawyers and everything to go to great ends to beat the tax system. Okay, but that's the problem.
To find the loopholes, yeah.
Sure, find the loopholes. Now, the argument that the guy was trying to put forward, I like to just go on a little on it because what he was alluding to, I think, is that there's a lot of people that have put their money and their whole life into their home. Okay, now through good times, say they come up on bad times, which say you work for a lot of workers or something, and you get laid off. Okay, now you're getting
strikes
X amount of money,
or health or whatever reason, yeah.
Exactly, or health, whatever. Now, you're not going to have to pay this high property tax. I mean, the property tax, is going to be there, but I mean, it's going to be a lot of less level, and maybe you can kind of pull through it. Whereas if they keep wrapping it to us the way they have been in the past years, and I mean, it's a much fairer form of tax. The property tax is the most regressive tax that's ever been on the face of the earth.
I've heard that before.
And no, it's a true. I did a thesis when I went to college on the Massachusetts tax structure. That's how come I filed that bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they should have the 5% in income tax, okay, exclusion of food and clothes. I go along with that, okay. That's giving the state some revenue. It's a revenue that's coming in all the time. In other words, it goes with the flow of the money, okay. Now, but property tax is regressive. In other words, property tax, it's the same thing as excise tax. The excise tax is a regressive tax. That should be eliminated. What they should do is you should pay your sales tax when you buy a car, and after you're taxed on your money through your income system, what you do with your money is your business, as far as I'm concerned.
They've still got some ridiculous excise taxes.
This would help your car industry in this country.
Tires, for example.
Sure. In Massachusetts, it would help your new car industry per se. In other words, a person is a lot less reluctant to buy a car if they say, well, geez, I'm not going to get an excise tax. I'm just going to pay the sales tax, and that's it. And then that's the only tax you should pay.
That's one of the reasons.
And then they would be, excuse me, I'm not saying to interrupt it. And then if they put it on your gas, you know what I'm talking about, Dennis, it would be a heck of a lot less regressive than if they hit you with even an excise tax.
If you're getting something for it, is what you're saying.
Exactly. An excise tax, excise tax it's like kindergarten. You go up there, if you've had couple of cars in a year, I mean, then you got to get a rebate, and you got to get on and see this, and you got to. I mean, it's a silly tax.
It's really a game, yeah.
Don't you think so?
Let me understand what you're saying now. You would retain, but set a ceiling on the existing real estate taxes.
Right.
But you would give a system, or put a system into effect similar to the federal tax that would tax the people on their income to be used exclusively for municipality, as far as their roads or their school or whatever.
No, it could be used for everything. I mean,
general
for
fund.
your state budget, okay? And it would be
Shouldn't it go directly to the town, though? If you give it to the state, then you're going to get somebody else's hand involved.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, but the idea is you've got to trust somebody, okay?
Yeah.
Hire more auditors if you have
So you're saying federal style, but have it directly to the state.
Sure. That's that way there. I mean, if they really, that's the only tax that the federal government requires. I mean, you pay. That's unless you have like an inheritance tax. They do have inheritance.
Oh, those are ungodly. What is it, 90%?
Yeah, something like that. But they have these taxes. But the thing is, they have the most regressive tax. I mean, in the study I did, in any studies that you go throughout the country, is the property tax.
You know, it's discouraging people from the American dream, which used to be owning it. Now we're becoming a nation of apartment dwellers and condo livers.
Sure, and it hits people. It hits people in a lot of instances that cannot afford to pay these taxes. In other words, if you're out there, and you're a ham and egg like I am, and you're out there hacking out a living, hey, that's great. You're making it. But say next year comes and I get laid off. Hey, I got a $2,000 property tax here. What the hell am I going to do with that?
Yep.
Am I going to stick it in my back pocket? I got to pay this.
Well,
it's either pay it or I have to sell my house.
Let me put it to you this way, sir. Standing in the unemployment line as I am right now, I know what you're talking about.
Now, I'm glad. I'm not glad that you're unemployed, but I'm glad that you're looking at it from that perspective.
Makes a lot of sense.
Well, this is a problem. It seems to be the problem in Massachusetts.
Let's bounce it off some more listeners.
Things that make sense a lot of times don't get through. I was up there, I talked my brains off for 20 minutes in front of the House Ways and Means Committee, and they sat there with some of their fingers up their nose and their whole humming you.
Well, they're politicians, and if they vote for a different kind of tax, they get themselves unelected, if there's such a word.
Well, I don't, okay.
Let's toss it out to others, sir. Thank you.
Nice talking to you, Dennis.
Right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
25 before 12 o'clock, Dennis Burke on WBZ. One line open right now at 254-5678. Hey, right now in August New England's famous Adams men's clothing warehouses are jumping the gun on fall with crazy prices like, some fantastic ones we'll get to later on corduroy. Now, while current stocks last, here's your chance to pick up the good, serviceable corduroys that you want for back to college and all fall. At a fraction of the normal retail prices, too. Now, corduroy vested suits, French designer style, $135 values, now a crazy, absolutely nutsy $59.90 at Adams. Designer label suits selling elsewhere for twice our prices, $89.90 to $139.90 at Adams. Corduroy slacks you'll see everywhere this fall at $20 to $25, now $11.90 at Adams. Adams beats the seasons so that you can beat the system. Come in and get them while the current stock lasts. Incredible savings on corduroys at Incredible Adams. Boston Beach and South Streets, Worcester 51 Union at Market. Salem, New Hampshire, Route 28, opposite Rockingham Mall. Open daily 10 till 8:30, Saturdays 6. That's Salem, open Sunday from 1 to 6.
And that's why we say, go out and buy a bunch today.
That's your new TV commercial, Mr. Sloak, for Snacky Crackies with Raisin Pits.
How much did that actually cost me?
Cost?
Yes.
Well, we're still adding it all up here. $42,000.
TV is so expensive.
Not as long as there aren't any changes.
Did I mention there may soon be a worldwide shortage of Raisin Pits?
One TV version without Raisin Pits.
How much will that add to the
$93,000.
And we want to tell Health Nuts we make snackies with Health Nuts.
$279,000.
And we need a version that will talk to the financial community.
Put the singing mouse and the dancing bunny in a business suit for...
Let me add that one for you. 300.
If business conditions make it necessary, with radio you can afford to change commercials fast. If you want to really target consumer groups, it won't cost a fortune to make commercials that fit each audience. Put amazingly flexible radio to work as a primary medium. Radio. It's red hot. Get more facts. Call this station or the Radio Advertising Bureau.
And it's Burke at Work on BZ. Let's do exactly that. Get back to work by saying, good evening, you're on WBZ.
Hey, Dennis, long time no hear.
I got it right that time. Hello.
Long time no hear, Dennis.
Well, it's been close to a couple of years, except for a few days earlier this month.
Well, we've missed you. You were on Saturday nights, right?
Yeah, Saturday nights, and I used to do this shift for Larry and his multiple vacations.
Yeah. Yeah, we miss you. This is Ron from Methuen.
Hi, Ron.
Since the can of worms on property taxes were opened up earlier, I'd just like to make one comment to get something off my chest. It's kind of like a chicken or a fishbone that's been sticking in my throat for a long time.
We should point out to the listeners, Ron, that Methuen, if it's still under the same designator, is the town of the city of Methuen?
It's the city known as the town of Methuen.
There you go. It's the only municipality in the U.S. that's called Methuen. Am I correct? You didn't
I don't know.
You didn't know that, Ron.
I know. I come from Glendale, California, and I know there's several Glendales.
Probably why you don't know. I interrupted you, Ron. Hit us with the taxes.
Well, that's okay. I'd like to buy my own home, but over the last few years with the mortgage interest rates and the money you got to get together for down payment, and the wife isn't working because she's trying to raise 2 kids, and that's her choice. I just can't get enough money together to do it.
Sure.
And then if I did manage to get it, I'd probably be so far in debt I'd lose the home in a couple of years.
That down payment is a killer, and then the monthlies are fantastic.
They are. But so for that reason, I've been renting, and I live in an apartment. But I want to tell the homeowner something. I realize that they do pay, in most towns around here, they do pay a large property tax. I think it's unfair. I agree with a lot of the things that have been said by the couple of the previous callers. But let's not forget, renters pay property tax too.
Mm-hmm.
And I can prove it because I got a letter from my landlord one time who told me directly that the rent was going up because of property tax increase.
I just paid a tack on, Ron, that was specifically that, about $70 that was tagged on after the rent year was over. They said our taxes went up, so here you go.
There you go, see? Now, the thing is, of course, the proportion you pay through your rent is not as much like if you live on a couple of acres with, say, 3 or 4 apartment units on it.
Mm-hmm.
But homeowners get to deduct it from their income tax. Okay? Renters don't get to do that.
Yeah.
Now, the landlord gets to add it onto our rent, and he gets to deduct it from his income tax. And I think that's patently unfair, although it's a smaller proportion, like I said.
The rich get rich and the poor get children.
Poor, and then the has, and then the don't. The thing is, I would like to see them do something about the property tax and yet balance it out so the state can still do the things it wants to do. I think the state sometimes tries to do too much, and that's why we have such a tax problem in the state already. But these things will be hashed out by the politicians over time, regardless of what we do. The only thing is, if something is done about the property taxes and they're frozen or they're reduced, I guarantee you one thing, my rent won't go down.
No, for sure.
And that's what really burns me, you know.
Ron,
I hope the homeowners get something, because then maybe I can afford to buy a home.
How about the specific proposal that the two gentlemen prior to you tossed out, that there be a freeze on the level of real estate tax as it is now, but it be tacked on in a federal form to the state tax as far as income? Do you think that's equitable? Do you think it's fair?
I don't know. It would spread it out, definitely, but...
I think what is in the gut feeling for most of us is, my God, we give them some more tax money. We know, and that's, I think, the word that's being resounded in everyone's cranium right now, we know they're not going to make the best use of it. They're going to go and blow it on something or other. That's the fear.
That's the fearful suspicion, yes.
Yep.
Since that's what they do a lot of the times. You know, there's a big... not very many people have talked about it in the newspapers, the news magazines, or the radio or TV. But there's a thing being considered in the government still called value-added tax. And that is a monstrous thing that they're going to try and put on us, where an item is taxed as it goes along the steps of production to the final consumer good.
I've heard about that.
Yes, and in a way, it will end up allowing Congress to increase taxes, and people really won't know they're doing it. You know, it's like a hitcher on inflation, where if inflation goes up so much, it automatically rises, and they don't have to take a vote on it.
Ron,
like the gasoline tax. You know?
I'll toss this at you. I grew up here in Boston, in Southie, and was part of a Democratic family, and as kids we were told, well, the Democrats are the ones that spend, and they therefore give us jobs. My dad was a defense worker at the Navy Yard. As I'm getting older, I'm becoming much, much more conservative. And I'm not wrapping the parties, because the party label doesn't mean as much as it used to. But I think conservative thinking someplace along the line is, please God, it's needed. They're going to kill us. We've got to start to get less involvement as far as government is concerned. Give the control of a person's own future back to themselves. Local rule, if you would, and on and on. We're getting too much bureaucratic red tape, too much involvement. We're paying for all kinds of stuff that is not really necessary.
Well, you see, there's something you have to be aware of, and a lot of people poo-poo it, especially if you put it in the wrong words. Now, we went through a McCarthy period where there was a communist in every pot.
Yep.
Okay. And people can be accused of looking for communism, but I'll tell you, there are people in positions of power in our federal government, okay, appointed people and people who rose to the civil service. You must always remember there are people in powerful positions that want to see this country become a socialist country. And I don't say communist. I say socialist, more like Sweden or Switzerland or England or something like that. They want to see us become a socialist country.
I'll take you a step further, Ron, and we'll leave it at this because we're getting kind of long on the call. If you were listening earlier, I was talking to Reader's Digest. 2 years ago when I was doing this show, I had their managing editor, John Allen, aboard, and we talked about a book which at that time is kind of in the vogue again right now. It was Legend, the story of Lee Harvey Oswald. And the contention of the book, and I don't know, I respect the Reader's Digest, was that there is a very high-ranking communist double-agent official in our government right now.
Possible.
Let's leave it there and think about it.
Yeah, I was going to say I could talk all night about Lee Harvey Oswald and John Kennedy and...
Well, I tossed that question out earlier, just briefly. I wanted to know your feelings. Should we dig up the body and be sure, or will we be sure if we dig up the body?
We might not be sure. I think it should be settled.
Yeah, but the dental records, I guess, could still be checked, huh?
They could. It's been a long time now. You know, in 3 years it'll be 20 years since he was assassinated.
Yep.
And I'll never forget that day as long as I live.
But just briefly, would you say yay or nay? Shall we pull it up and take a peek or what?
Exhume the body and look at it. Yay. I vote for it.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
WBZ Radio 1030.
15 minutes in front of the witching hour of midnight. WBZ wants you to know that the Salem State College class of 70 is planning its 10th reunion. Alumni are urged to contact the alumni office to supply name and or address changes, please. Reunion is scheduled for October 11th. October 11th should be a fun time. All the lines are occupied. Let's get right back to the phone by saying good evening here on WBZ. Hello? Hello, hello. Did I do something wrong, guys? She's there. Are you there? We're talking to you. Indiana, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, there you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I can scarcely hear you at all.
I'll get closer to the mic. How's this?
The lady called and inquired about the Edgar Casey.
Yes, she did.
That group is based in Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach.
And it's called the Association for Research and Enlightenment.
Let me
ARE.
write this down now. Virginia Beach
I
is...
beg your pardon?
Virginia Beach is the headquarters. Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Well, Virginia Beach, is that California?
No, Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Virginia, and it's called what?
Down by Norfolk?
Yes, and the name of the organization?
Yes, it's the Association for Research and Enlightenment.
Can you tell us anything about it? Do you know about them?
Yes, I have been a member of their study group. And the books that we study, in fact, Edgar Casey's son, Hugh Lynn Casey, is still very, very active and does a great amount of speaking around the country at seminars and workshops. And the books that we study are titled Search for God. That is basically what we each are searching for our own pathway to, and it's a self-searching. Some of the chapter titlings, like, is on cooperation, for example. And if we were studying that chapter, we would be learning to cooperate with all of our surroundings rather than fight with it.
Is it a religious group as such, ma'am?
Very, very important.
Let me try again. Is it a religious group? Hello? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, we thank you for the information. Thank you very much.
You can locate them by phone or mail with no more information than that name and the city.
Okay, Indiana, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Would have liked to ask some more. As we talked about it, it started to come back to me. Edgar Casey has, even though he is gone beyond, has a syndicated radio show. And I remember seeing some of those things come across my desk as a program director. So perhaps some of you have heard of this gentleman. Edgar Casey, Study Group, Virginia Beach, Virginia, the Association for Research and Enlightenment. I make it to be 12 minutes before 12 o'clock. Again, Larry Glick is due back tomorrow night. He is celebrating Rosh Hashanah. Good evening. You're on WBZ.
Hey, Dennis.
Hi.
How you doing?
You can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
That was frustrating, that last one. Yes.
Yeah. I just want to call you to tell you that you're really doing a good job filling in for Larry.
I appreciate that.
And another thing, I just started school today, and I just want to talk to you about it. They're renovating our school at Arlington High, and we just started school today when we were supposed to start a week ago.
And you're in the midst of a construction project, huh?
Yes.
That has to be distracting as all heck.
Oh, geez. Last year, they separated the freshmen, and I was a freshman last year, and they separated us. We had to go walking back and forth to classes. I could have classes in the high school, and I'd have classes in the building that they use for freshmen. So I had to walk back and forth, and plus the noise. And this year, they put us in one building this year.
You know, it's tough enough. I'm still young enough to remember. It's tough enough to really tune in and make the best of those years and to study. But when you've got distractions like that, it must be really nasty. Let me toss something at you. What's your first name, please?
Mark.
Mark, your year in high school is what?
Sophomore.
You're a sophomore.
Yeah.
Now, this, if you want to say, hey, I don't want to talk about it, say so and I'll let you be. But drugs, how prevalent? What percentage?
Oh, it's a good percentage, believe me. It's,
Much better than 50.
well, yeah, yep. I'd say about 60%.
All right.
Not right around 50, higher than 50, no lower than 50%, definitely.
Again, a curiosity factor on my part. It was not the vogue. It wasn't happening when I was in school. And again, I'll go back to what I said before. It's a tough stretch of your life, and it's hard to tune in.
Yeah.
How do these kids tune in when they're high, Mark?
Well, they're just not talkative, they'll just sit there and, look around. They'll be kind of bummed out, like school, they go into school and, they're just sitting around.
So what's being taught sort of bounces off?
Yeah. Oh, excuse me, say that again?
It just bounces off them. They can't absorb the stuff.
Oh, yeah. They just, they just sit there, not active. Well, some, there's different kinds of drugs, but mostly they just come in and, they got nothing on their mind, they're just sitting there, they got a good buzz, and they just sitting.
How about the use of drugs during school hours? Is that pretty prevalent?
No, it's not a problem. It's usually,
Before and after?
Yeah.
Lunch break?
Yeah. Lunch break, maybe. But nothing like, after or before school.
A curiosity factor again, Mark, and I'm a 43-year-old guy, so I'm kind of separated from it, but I have some kids at high school age. What does it cost, do you know, for a joint?
Oh, well, I don't, of course, I don't smoke that, and for a joint...
Someplace around $1?
Yeah, you could, $1, it depends, you got a kid that's 50 cents, you want to get rid of it, and it's between really 50 and about $1.50,
Now, there was some talk a while back in the press, in the printed media, saying that because of the price and because it was in some instances hard to get, the drugs were being replaced by booze, by beer. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, that's a problem, too, definitely, alcohol.
Can you see a direct relationship between the student who is making it in school and the kid who is using drugs who is not making it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's a sad thing because, I can't down you guys. I don't use it. I don't know what it's all about. And yet it really tears me up inside that these years, strategic years, how you do in school, how you do in high school, gets you into or doesn't get you into college, and you blow it.
Yeah, you just hang around.
Hey, Mark, grit your teeth and ignore that construction, huh?
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Appreciate the call, guy.
Okay, I'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's see, we have about 7 minutes to go before 12 o'clock. Dennis Burke on BZ at 254-5678. Area code is 617, and there is a line open right now. BZ wants you to know that the Beacon Hill chapter, National Secretaries Association, will hold its monthly dinner meeting. It happens tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. It'll be at the Holiday Inn on Cambridge Street right here in Boston. Back to the phones. Good evening. You're on WBZ. Hello? Hi.
Hello, Dennis.
Yes.
I don't have much to add to the program except to just say hello to you.
It sounds like a familiar voice. Is this Fitzy?
Yes, it is.
Son of a gun, Fitzy, how you been?
Oh, well, not too good. But that's all right.
You're still with us. That's what counts, guy.
Yeah, that's what counts. As long as you're able to put your 2 feet in the ground in the morning or turn around a little bit.
Yeah?
I guess you're all right.
As long as you're still mobile, huh?
Right. How's your back?
The back isn't bad. I mentioned I did a couple of shows for Bob Rowley earlier this month, and I mentioned I've started to play tennis. And that's kind of a rigorous thing for a 43-year-old guy to start out, but I've been pleasantly surprised. It's good exercise, and the legs and the back have been holding out pretty well.
Oh, that's great.
Tennis game is awful, but the legs are holding out.
You still living in that same town?
I'm up in Manchester, New Hampshire now, Fitzy.
Oh, you sold that house, all the work you did in it?
No, we still own the house.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. Well, look, I don't want to tie up your line.
Hey, I appreciate you taking the time to give us a shout, Fitzy.
But I did want to say hello, and that's it. Okay, pal?
It's great to know you're out there. Thank you, Fitz.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Again, a nice feeling to come back after 2 years and be remembered. Fitzy, one of our longtime callers, and a regular. I'm sure all of you Glicknicks recognize that voice. 5 minutes to go before news from Stephen Smith at 12 midnight. Good evening, you're on WBZ.
Good evening.
Hi.
another one of your regulars.
Mrs. S.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm pretty well, thank you. How are you?
Not bad at all. I'm kind of happy to be here again, and so are my creditors.
Oh, it's very nice to hear you again.
I appreciate that.
Talking about the excise tax,
Please.
if this 2.5 goes through,
Uh-huh.
the excise tax will drop to $25 a thousand, I understand.
Is that right?
And there's some clause in it about rent. Now, I haven't gotten it straight yet, but tomorrow I should have done it today, and then I could talk about it. But I hope somebody who does understand it better than I do will call in and tell us.
Is it rather complicated?
Well, this part of it, I would believe, is the person renting will be able to deduct the amount of money that they spend for rent, the amount that goes to taxes. Will be able to deduct that on their income tax.
That's a blessing, huh?
And at the same time, the landlord will not list that. Now, neither will he get credit for it. He won't list that as income. Now, that, I think, is the way it is, but I hope somebody out there understands it better than I do.
That seems to make sense, and that sounds like a good deal. Who was the sponsor, do you recall?
Well, isn't there a fellow by the name of Hyatt?
Hyatt.
Yes.
Is he from the Merrimack Valley area of Massachusetts?
I don't really know, Mr. Burke.
Because that rings a bell. When I lived in the Greater Lawrence area for some years, there was a Wilbur Hyatt. Now, I don't know if he's the same gent who was in town politics in Methuen, matter of fact.
Well, no, I've heard him on several programs.
Could be a different gent, huh?
It might be a member of the same family.
How do you feel about the proposal that a couple of our callers have made tonight, that is to put a freeze on the real estate tax as it is and to kind of spread it out by tacking it on to income tax?
Well, I heard one gentleman, I only heard part of it because I had a telephone call, but I thought what he was promoting was graduated income tax. He wanted to have the same as the federal.
Yeah, in essence, that's what he said, right?
And that is the graduated income tax. And I remember that's been twice before the legislature, and they turned it down. The people really went mad, didn't want any part of it.
It's a very, very difficult thing, even though it might make sense to put through, because you talk about any kind of a new tax, and you get this fear factor that we were talking about a while ago. And I think it's the innate fear that we don't trust the public officials to give them any different money.
Can you blame us?
Not at all.
You know, you were talking about Sweden. We have recently, and for some time off and on, we've had a talk host that came from New Hampshire. You probably know who I'm speaking about. And he called Stockholm one night to speak to a friend of his who was living in Stockholm representing a company from this country. And he told what was going on over there, and it was most interesting. The high-income people were paying a terrific tax. And, of course, the lower-income people were realizing the benefits. Now, the gasoline tax is so high that the price of gas